hey, here's a book about a priest who was killed by the devil during a service. Isn't this guy a doctor? I don't believe anything this woman is saying. But he's also kind of evil. This seems suspicious. So it doesn't seem like Wicks is a great person. She knew where the bodies were buried. A bit of an odd thing to say. So the movie starts out 9 months before the Monsignor is murdered, with Reverend Judd Duplicity. So a deacon at his church says something out of line, and he punches him and breaks his jaw. So a great start. So a little background on Judd. He used to be a boxer. He lived on the streets, and his words, not mine, he did some other things. Don't know what that is. I'm not completely sure if this is relevant, but the deacon that Judd punched is called Deacon Clark. So as a punishment, because he did punch someone, he gets sent away to a small parish in Chimney Rock, and it is led by Monsignor Jefferson Wicks. Now keep in mind, this is 9 months before Wicks ends up dead, so we have a lot of ground to cover. So on Judd's first day, we meet two characters. We meet the murder victim, Monsignor Jefferson Wicks, and we also meet Martha Delacroix. So it seems like Martha likes to sneak up on people, and she also mentions that she wakes up early to polish the silver. It was blotchy. I don't know if this is relevant, but whenever I hear the word blotchy, I think of blood, so she's immediately suspicious. So the first thing that Wicks does is he tells Judd to take his confession. It's been 6 weeks since his last confession. I personally found this weird because he is the only priest at this church. So who did he confess to before that? What happened 6 weeks ago? And more importantly, what did he confess? So in his confession, Wicks mentions a lot of things, mostly envy. So he envies the material wealth of others, envies the power of great men, and he also envies the power that his grandfather had as a priest. He also says some inappropriate stuff that I don't want to repeat, but basically it seems like he's trying to make Judd uncomfortable. And I'm uncomfortable too. Judd does say in the narration, looking back, I know this was Wicks' first punch. It wouldn't be his last. So it doesn't seem like Wicks is a great person. We also get introduced to one more character, which is Samson Holt. He is the only other full-time employee except for Martha. So Samson is the church's groundskeeper. Also, it seems as though Samson and Martha are in a relationship. We learn a little bit more information about Samson. He used to be an alcoholic. According to him, Wicks used to drink as well, and Wicks actually helped Samson get over his addiction. He also talks a lot about Martha. He calls her his sweet Martha and says, I'd do anything for her, my angel on earth. Feel like that is going to be relevant because there is going to be a murder that takes place, so maybe when he says, I can do anything for her, he means he can kill people for her. We also learn about Martha's role. So according to Judd, Martha does everything in the church. She's also responsible for feeding Wicks, so she's kind of like a mother figure, I guess. And Judd does say about Martha, she knew where the bodies were buried. A bit of an odd thing to say, but okay. And we also get introduced to a location, which is the crypt. So the crypt is described to have a Lazarus door. So basically, it is a door that cannot be opened from the outside without construction equipment, but it can be opened from the inside with a simple push. Now, personally, I don't know anything about crypts. I know that it's supposed to usually be a holy place to be buried. I don't see the purpose of making it so that you can open it from the inside, unless you think that the dead body is going to come back to life, which the movie is called Wake Up Dead Man, but it feels a bit unrealistic. And also, the crypt has been graffitied. We don't know who it's been graffitied by, but it has been graffitied. So it seems like the person inside is not very liked. And we actually get to know who's inside the crypt, which is Prentice, which is Wicks' grandfather. So Prentice actually founded that church, and he is also a father figure to Martha. Also, in one of the scenes, Martha is holding an axe, just like she is in this photo. I don't know why, but I feel like that's relevant. I mean, she manages the church, like she takes care of the documents and the files, and she manages the food and the drink and all that, so why would she need an axe? I understand Samson needing one, but why is she holding an axe? And we also get to know that the church doesn't have a cross anymore, and when Judd inquires about it, Wicks mentions that the cross, or the lack of a cross, is a reminder of the shameful sin of the harlot whore. Pardon my language. So there is a scene where Martha is making some invites to a book club. It really zooms in on the invite, so I did take note of it because I feel like it's going to come back later. And this is when Judd questions Martha about who the harlot whore is. So that person is actually Wicks' mother. So when Wicks' grandfather started the church, he was widowed and he had a daughter, Grace. So Grace wasn't a very holy person. She loved brands, she loved dressing provocatively, and she ended up getting pregnant by a drifter. And it's implied that this happens when she's a teenager. And Wicks' grandfather, Prentice, actually had a family fortune. So in order to protect his grandson, he promised his daughter Grace that if both Grace and Wicks stayed under his roof, then Grace would inherit the family fortune when Prentice eventually died. So Grace just moved in and waited for Prentice to die. Martha specifically brings up Prentice saying something to her. Martha, remember this. Wealth and the power that comes with it is Eve's apple, temptation that leads to the fall. I must protect our loved ones from its corrupting influence at all costs. At all costs. So maybe Wicks is corrupt because he doesn't seem like a nice person, and Martha's at all cost is killing him. We also find out that Martha witnessed Prentice's death. She claims that she saw him die during his final communion, but the way that he died looked a bit weird to me. He kind of just fell to the ground, and also Martha's reaction, she is a child when Prentice dies. Her reaction is very odd because she doesn't really give a reaction. And one would think that if your father figure died in front of you, you'd, be upset or be shocked or have some sort of reaction. So once Prentice died, again, Prentice is Wicks' grandfather, Grace, Wicks' mother, tries to get the inheritance that she was promised. Turns out, Prentice emptied all of his accounts before he died. No one has any idea what he did with the fortune, but he did leave Grace something. So he left her a globe that has a figure of Jesus in it, and it says, L'Evil Apple. I'm assuming that's supposed to translate to Eve's apple. And according to Martha, Grace was very upset and she took her revenge that night. She destroyed the entirety of the church, including the cross, in what Martha describes as a demonic rage. So child Martha witnesses Grace's demonic rage, and she whispers into Grace's ear, Sister Grace, God, your Father will forgive you in his love. Grace hears this and is furious, and she pushes Martha, who is a child by the way, to the ground and starts attacking her. And according to Martha, Grace actually dies throwing herself against the crypt where Prentice was buried. And then she also has a brain aneurysm. So this is only the first 15 minutes of the movie. We have a lot of information and we have a lot more. So I'm just keeping in mind that everything that I said about Wicks' grandfather and his mother is told to us by Martha. We don't know if Martha is telling the truth, but this is the only information we have. I feel like she is lying, and I'm going to break down some of my theories. So theory number 1, I don't think Prentice died of natural causes. It kind of looked like he was poisoned, like he fell to the ground. So I'm thinking maybe Martha as a child poisoned him, because again, her reaction to seeing her father figure die as a child is very calm. Or maybe Prentice isn't actually dead. The crypt is really confusing me, because why would you create a burial place that can only be opened from the inside? Almost as if the person inside isn't actually dead. And second, what happened to Prentice's fortune? Was it buried with him? Is it in the crypt with him? Did Wicks get his hands on it after Grace died? Or maybe Martha got her hands on it. She could have been in the will. She was like Prentice's daughter. Prentice also says to Martha that his fortune is Eve's apple. And he gives Grace a globe that roughly translates, I assume, to Eve's apple, which now belongs to Martha. So is his fortune inside the globe somehow? And my third theory is related to what Prentice said to Martha. He said he must protect our loved ones from its corrupting influence at all cost, referring to his fortune. So maybe Martha or Prentice did something to make sure that Grace couldn't get her hands on the fortune. And number 4, Grace's reaction to not receiving the fortune. Again, Martha describes this as a demonic rage, but to me, when I saw it, it looked like she was having like a mental health crisis, like a psychotic episode. And it seems like a bit of an overreaction to losing out on someone's inheritance, so there's probably something else going on. And 5th, What did Martha, child Martha, whisper in Grace's ear? She tells us that she whispers something, but in the scene itself, we don't see child Martha talking. So again, Martha could be lying. I don't believe anything Martha says for a second. She is so incredibly suspicious. Whatever Martha whispered in Grace's ear would have to have been bad enough for Grace to attack a child. So I don't believe that Martha was very nice. And the sixth thing I want to talk about is how Grace died. So she was throwing herself against Prentice's crypt and she died of a brain aneurysm. Why was she throwing herself against Prentice's crypt? What would that do? It seems like she wanted to get into the crypt so desperately that she was throwing herself against it. So maybe that's where the fortune is. Right now, I don't believe Martha for a second, and I am 100% on Grace's side. I don't believe anything this woman is saying. I don't like this narrative that's being created about Grace, so I just don't believe it. And then, Judd introduces our murder suspects. Keep in mind that the murder has not been committed yet, but we do get an introduction to everyone on this wall. So all of the suspects are the core group of regulars at the church. First, we have Vera Draven. So she is a local attorney. Her dad was Wicks's attorney and also his drinking buddy. And I'm not really sure about this, but why does a priest need an attorney? Again, I don't know a lot about priests, but maybe it has something to do with the fortune. And in the picture that Vera shows us of Wicks and Vera's father, both of them are drinking, and Wicks is already a priest. And I'm pretty sure drinking is against the rules for priests. Vera tells us that she became a lawyer because she wanted to do great things in the world, but her dad wanted her to take over his practice, and that's why she's still in this town. And then we have Cy Draven, Vera's adopted son. He just moved back home after a failed career in politics. From their behavior, it seems like Vera doesn't really like him that much, and we do get an introduction to how Cy was adopted. So Vera was fresh out of law school, and Vera's father came home with 10-year-old Cy and said Vera was going to raise him, no questions asked. Now everyone in this town believes that Cy is Vera's illegitimate brother, but Vera had no complaints and she still raised him. So I just want to present a little bit of a theory. Whenever somebody says everyone knows this, it always makes me a bit suspicious, because there's no evidence that Cy is Vera's illegitimate brother. So hypothetically, Cy could also be Wicks's child. I feel like that would be a bit obvious though, so the theory that I really believe in is that Cy is Vera's actual son. Maybe, like Grace, Wicks's mother, Vera also got pregnant as a teenager, gave birth to Cy, and then gave him up. Maybe against her father's permission or without her father knowing. And then maybe her father finds out and brings him back home so that she has to take responsibility for him. I don't have any evidence right now, but I'm getting a strong connection that these two are actually related. Cy tells us that he failed in politics because he could not engage voters. So Judd gives him a bit of advice to connect with people in a genuine way, but Cy over here wants to incite outrage to get votes. And then we have Dr. Nat Sharp, the local doctor. 1 week before Judd shows up, Nat's wife leaves him, and he becomes very sad and he starts drinking a lot. His wife takes his kids and moves away to Tuscan to be with a different man that she met online. And Nat is just incredibly devastated and he's just drinking a bunch. And then we have Lee Ross. So Lee Ross is a local celebrity. He's a sci-fi writer. He moved to this town 10 years ago. He used to live in New York, but since he moved here, his book sales and his popularity have gone down. Lee Ross has spent the last year writing a new book, and this new book is actually about Wicks. And Lee says that he has pinned all of his hopes on it. Lee also tells us that he himself doesn't like Cy, and nobody else likes Cy either. And then we have Simone, who is new to town. She used to be a world-class cellist, but she was forced to retire 5 years ago because she started experiencing a lot of chronic nerve pain that the doctors weren't able to diagnose. She believes that she was suckered by doctors because they tried to make her believe that they could heal her. She says herself, to take someone's faith and exploit it for money is the ultimate evil. And now she has put all of her faith in God and she feels hopeful for a miracle. So Wicks is described to be very charismatic, but he's also kind of evil, especially his way of keeping his core group around him. So every single week, during the church service, he would pick someone from the crowd, usually a newcomer, and just yell at them and insult them and take it too far. He was hoping for every single week is for that person to get upset, get up, and then walk out. The reason he wants people to walk out is because every time someone walks out, everyone watches them, and if everyone else remains seated, they are taking Wicks' side. They are now complicit in what Wicks has done. So he's basically manipulating them to keep them close to him. He is basically building a wall around them of complicity, and what Judd wants to do is the exact opposite. He wants to break down those walls. So in order to do that, Judd sets up a prayer group. So in this prayer group, Judd does confess to killing a guy. Not Monsignor Wicks, that hasn't happened yet, but when he was 17, he kills someone in the ring. He also talks about struggling with addiction and violence after he's done that. And that's actually why he became a reverend, because he finds that the church sustains him and he wants the church to sustain all these other people as well. It is revealed that this prayer meeting is being done in secret, that Judd did not inform Wicks of this, and everyone gets very worried. Martha immediately texts Wicks, and Wicks' reply is very angry. So everybody leaves the prayer group because they don't want to make Wicks upset. So on the way out of this prayer group, Martha decides to confront Judd. And in this confrontation, Judd ends up challenging Martha. Could you walk into that church of your own free will and confess your deepest sin to Wicks, Martha, without fear? Because if not, this whole place is a whitewashed tomb. It's interesting that he said that because the crypt is white. So maybe that's a reference to something that's going to happen. And later on, it seems like Martha actually completed Judd's challenge because Judd sees Martha leave the confession booth and it looks like she's been crying. Wicks also walks out after her and he seems kind of sweaty and out of breath. Now, I'm not completely sure what she would have done or said to Wicks to give him that reaction, but he seems like really disturbed. Judd did tell Martha to confess her deepest sin, so I'm assuming it'll be about grace or Prentice or maybe the inheritance, so maybe it's something really devastating to Wicks. So the week leading up to Easter is what this church calls Holy Week. And Judd tells us that on the 13th of April, which is Palm Sunday, is the day where Judd finally breaks. At this point, it has been 9 months since Judd arrived, and keep in mind that Monsignor Wicks dies 9 months after Judd arrives. So I'm assuming Wicks is going to die sometime soon. Judd looks through Martha's file cabinets and finds some medical documentation about Wicks, which basically proves that during his confession, Wicks has been lying in order to make Judd uncomfortable. Judd also ends up confronting Wicks and tells him that what Wicks is doing to all of these other people is incredibly wrong. So Judd also outlines what each of these people need. According to Judd, Dr. Nat Sharp needs to forgive his wife and actually start living his life. He's getting more and more angry and bitter towards his ex-wife every single day, and also towards women in general. According to Judd, Lee is a storyteller, but it's sort of been weaponized against him. Lee believes that the entire world is out to get him. He is very intelligent, but right now he's just angry and paranoid to the point that he has literally built a moat around his house. And then moving on to Simone, Judd says that Wicks has taken advantage of Simone's faith. Judd has also seen the donation numbers, and he knows that Simone has donated a lot of money to the church, and the church is basically running on Simone's donations. So moving on to Cy. So what Cy does is that he records all of Wicks' sermons and then inserts them into his own political rants that he uploads online. And Judd believes what Cy is doing is wrong because he's basically just making people angry. Judd says that Wicks is intentionally keeping all of these people angry and afraid, and he also mentions how no one else has really come to the church for more than one Sunday because Wicks always scares them off. Wicks gets very angry about this and ends up punching Judd in the stomach. He also pushes Judd to the floor until Judd stands up with his fists up trying to defend himself. Now this makes Wicks very happy. He says that anger lets us fight back, and you're afraid I'm going to come at you again, but you're protecting yourself. So Judd's response is pretty extreme. He says, "You're poisoning this church, and I'll do whatever it takes to save it, to cut you out like a cancer." And that honestly sounds like a death threat. And as Wicks is walking away from that threat, we do see Cy standing there and recording it. So it feels like Wicks intentionally set this up to try and get Judd into trouble. So maybe he told Cy that he was going to provoke Judd so that Judd would threaten him, and so that Cy can record it and potentially get Judd kicked out again. And what happens that night is that Judd shows up at the church again, and he finds Wicks yelling at everyone about Judd's secret prayer meeting. Judd is very sad because everyone basically has gone against him because of Wicks, so he goes to a bar to get drunk. In his drunk state, he ends up breaking the top of a lamp, which is a little wolf demon head. Judd ends up cycling back to the church, and he throws this little demon wolf head through the church's window. Sam does see this, but it's very dark, so I don't think he sees Judd, and Sam is wearing a very dark hood and has like a lantern. Now, for the actual murder. So, the murder takes place on the 18th of April, which is Good Friday. Judd describes Wicks' anger that day to be less calculated than usual and more unhinged. And usually, because he gets so angry, he needs time to physically and emotionally recover, so he walks into this side closet. And this small closet is to the side where no one else can see him, so Wicks walks into that closet, and usually Judd will continue the service until Wicks starts feeling better. But that day, after Wicks enters the closet, they hear a thud, and Judd looks over to find Wicks face down on the ground. Judd walks into the closet to see what's wrong, and the others follow after him. So it turns out Wicks is bleeding. Judd has blood on his hands, literally, and Judd notices that Wicks has something in his back that's sticking out. So that little demon head that Judd threw yesterday night is actually sticking out the back of Wicks, but this time it's painted bright red. So Martha sees this and starts freaking out and starts yelling about the devil. So Dr. Nat volunteers to help. He takes a napkin and he tries to remove the wolf head, but it's revealed that it's connected to a blade, so Nat immediately lets go. And because Nat lifted up the blade, there's now a pool of blood that's surrounding the body. Just a little side note here. Isn't this guy a doctor? I mean, he should know better than to pull something out of a bleeding body. I'm not a doctor, but I've seen enough murder mysteries and watched enough TV shows and movies to know that if someone's been stabbed, you don't remove the weapon. It's presumed that Wicks was already stabbed because Judd had blood on his hands. What other reason would there be blood? So the fact that Nat removed the blade seems a bit suspicious to me, because surely a doctor would know not to do that. In case you don't know, if you try and take something out of someone who's been stabbed, it actually makes them bleed more. So I don't understand why he did that. It could be a writing mistake, but this seems suspicious. Anyway, so the ambulance arrives 5 minutes later, but by that point, Wicks is already dead. Martha does say that Wicks will rise again, and the movie is called Wake Up Dead Man, so maybe he's not actually dead. And then we get introduced to Geraldine Scott. She is the local police chief, and she has no idea how to solve a murder because it's a small town and this never happens. On that Saturday, Geraldine questions Judd, and while that is happening, Cy uploads his video of Judd threatening Jefferson Wicks onto YouTube, and everyone in town is suspecting Judd because he did kind of threaten Wicks, and then the next day he shows up dead. Now at this point, everyone in town believes that Judd killed Wicks because Judd did threaten Wicks, and it did sound a bit like a death threat to cut someone out like a cancer. So Judd is now receiving a lot of text messages calling him the killer priest. And then finally, the man himself, Benoit Blanc, shows up. Now, before he starts his investigative work, I do have a couple of theories. I don't think it's Martha. She is really creepy and she's really dramatic, but I feel like it would be way too obvious for it to be Martha. I think she, at this point, is our obvious red herring. If you don't know what a red herring is, it's basically something there to distract you or to mislead you from what you should be looking at. The narrative is making her seem very creepy, and I don't think the actual killer would be framed in that light immediately. And then number 2, like I said before, Dr. Nat Sharp. Again, this is because he did pull something out of a man who had been stabbed, and he's a doctor, so he should know not to do that. I don't have a motivation for him yet, but I presume it could be something to do with his ex-wife. But to poke a hole in this theory of Dr. Nat Sharp, his wife does leave him 9 months and 1 week before Wicks is killed, So the timeline doesn't really make sense. Why would he wait that long? So we only get about 3 seconds of screen time with Dr. Nat Sharp's wife, Darla, but she seems like a very cheerful and friendly person, so maybe she had a problem against Wicks, which is why she left. And theory 3 at this point is Lee Ross. So his career is not doing so well, and he did write a book about the murder victim, Wicks, and he does mention how this book is his final hope. And you know what would be an absolutely great marketing strategy? Hey, here's a book about a priest who was killed by the devil during a service. That seems pretty interesting to me, and that might help him sell more copies. And my fourth suspicion is Vera. We know a lot about a lot of these other characters, but Vera is still a bit of a mystery. We don't really know what's going on with her. And what I'm really wondering is, what connection does Vera have to Wicks now that her dad is dead? Why is she still here? And why is she so afraid of him? I don't understand why she left the prayer meeting. What does Wicks have on Vera to make her so afraid? And the final question that I want to pose right now is actually about Judd. So the first thing we see him do is punch a deacon in the face because he said something out of line. What did that deacon say to make Judd punch him? Because Wicks tries to antagonize Judd. Wicks actually physically attacks Judd, and Judd does not fight back. So what could that deacon have said to make Judd punch him and break his jaw? So Judd, Blanc, and Geraldine go to the bar to investigate. We find out that the little wolf devil head was freshly painted red, and it was filled with plaster so that someone could stick a blade into it. And we also see Dr. Nat Sharp eavesdropping on this entire conversation. So he's already suspicious, but the fact that he's hiding in a bar and listening to the detectives and the primary suspect talk, it's a bit suspicious. So Blanc actually brings a murder mystery book. It's The Hollow Man by John Dixon Carr, and it's a Golden Age detective novel that sort of popularized the locked door mystery trope. And turns out that same book is on the list for the book club. I knew it was important. So Blanc says that whoever committed this crime basically replicated a locked door mystery. And as Geraldine and Blanc are talking, Martha is eavesdropping on them. And it should also be noted that Martha is the person who picks the book for each book club. So it's not looking good for Martha right now, but I still don't suspect her because I feel like it's a bit too obvious. So Blanc basically walks us through every single way a locked door mystery can be done. He goes through 3 different possibilities. So one possibility is that Wicks was stabbed before entering the closet. He concludes that this is not possible because Judd would have watched him. The second possibility is that Wicks was killed inside the closet by something outside the closet. And they look around but they don't find anything, so that's not possible either. And the third and final way he brings up is that Wicks was killed inside the closet by something already inside the closet. And Judd does mention that he remembers a clangy thud, sort of like the sound of metal. So they go through a couple possibilities, but all of them are deemed impossible. The only real evidence they have is 2 pieces of string on the floor. So these 2 pieces of string are thick red thread. They're 3 inches long, and they were found near Wicks's body near his hip. And during this investigation, Martha interrupts them by crying really loudly. She doesn't like the fact that they're treating the church like a crime scene. It is a crime scene, but it feels like Martha is trying to distract them from something. And Martha does compare Judd to Grace. Again, Grace is Wicks's mother. Judd is very upset by this, so he runs away and he bumps into Sam, who is watching Friday's football game. Again, Friday was the day that the murder was committed. Sam tells us that Martha would be upset if he listened to the game during the service, so Sam ended up taping it. Now this is relevant because this gives us some more evidence. So according to Geraldine and the rest of the police, Dr. Nat Sharp called the ambulance at 3:47 p.m. 90 seconds before that, the tape that Sam was recording had a glitch. They are saying that this could be the signal from a remote control that's interfering with the taping. We also have a bit more evidence. We have Sai's recording of everything, because again, he's recording all the time. So they sync up the footage from Sai and the tape from Sam, and the footage glitches when Judd is about to enter the closet. So when the glitch took place, Wicks was already dead and Judd was looking right at him. So it can't be that the glitch happened because of a remote that ended up killing Wicks, because at this point Wicks was already dead. So Blanc believes that Judd is hiding something unintentionally, so what he does is he tells Judd to write down his memory of the murder so that Blanc can read it and maybe catch something that Judd is missing. So after reading the story that Judd has written down, Blanc walks up to Judd and says, "Why'd you do it?" And Judd replies, "Better question is, why'd I think I could lie to you and get away with it?" So I guess it was Judd. I guess the killer is revealed. The problem is that the story isn't even halfway done yet. We still have half the movie left, so if Judd killed Wicks, what's happening in the other half of the movie? Okay, so never mind, Judd did not kill Wicks. But what Benoit does reveal is that Wicks went into the closet to drink alcohol. Now, everyone else is aware of this except for Sam, who is the groundskeeper. Now, Judd tells us that getting sober saved Sam's life, and he also describes Sam to be the only good person in this place. And Judd doesn't want Sam to lose his faith in Wicks, so before the police arrive, Judd picks up Wicks's flask from his dead body, and he hides it in his bedside drawer. Judd does try to retrieve it so that he can give it to Blanc, but when he goes to his bedside drawer, it isn't there anymore. So Blanc does let us know that the flask that Judd stole from Wicks's dead body is the missing puzzle piece. Of course, the most obvious theory here is that what if someone poisoned Wicks? Now, the most obvious suspect here would be Martha, because she does take care of what Wicks eats, and I presume that would also include what he drinks. So she would have the most access to Wicks's flask. But the biggest flaw with this theory is Wicks's autopsy would have said that he died via poison. And even if it doesn't kill him, I presume that consuming poison would do some sort of damage. So that would have probably come up as well. But what if it wasn't poison? What if it was just some sort of drug that would make Wicks pass out so that he could be stabbed without reacting? Now, to be fair, I don't know a lot about stabbing. My only knowledge is from TV shows and movies. But when someone gets stabbed, they don't immediately just pass out onto the floor. Usually they have some sort of reaction. One would assume that someone would make a noise or scream or ask for help. They don't just immediately die. But Wicks collapses onto the floor, and then he's just out. So maybe it was a drug. Now, Blanc watches Cy's recording of Wicks's final sermon, and there's one quote that I found very interesting. So Wicks says, "As our Lord was, I am betrayed by Judas." Now, I'm not a Christian, so I may have some gaps in my knowledge about this, but I'm pretty sure Judas was one of Jesus's apostles. To me, most of these people in the church are more like Wicks's followers, except for one person, and I keep coming back to her, so I'm probably wrong about this, but I have to say it, Martha. If Wicks was going to describe any of these people as being Judas, I would assume Martha, because he does seem the closest to Martha. They did grow up in the same church, and Wicks's father, Prentice, was a father figure to Martha, so I guess they have sort of a sibling dynamic as well. The only other person that might be a little bit closer to Wicks is Vera, because Vera's dad was Wicks's drinking partner and also his lawyer. So maybe that's what he means by being betrayed by Judas. The person who is there to help you is the person that ends up betraying you. And currently, Vera is Wicks's lawyer. So maybe she has done something to expose Wicks for a crime. But my primary suspect is Martha, because she's more like an assistant. She's like Wicks's assistant, or like his right-hand man or right-hand woman. So I'm assuming the Judas claim is about Martha. Now remember, Martha did confess her greatest sin to Wicks, and Wicks looked very shocked. So maybe that's what he means by being betrayed by Judas, that Martha revealed something about maybe killing Prentice or killing Grace or something to do with the inheritance that she was hiding from Wicks, and Wicks feels betrayed. Or maybe Wicks is talking about Martha betraying Prentice. Martha was not only Wicks's right hand, Martha was also sort of the right hand of Prentiss, so maybe by betraying her father figure, she has become Judas. Martha also asked to be alone with Wicks's body before he's buried, and Judd overhears her saying something. "You will rise again. It will be okay." And this makes me realize that I did not count on one possibility. Maybe Wicks is not actually dead. Can you really blame me for this? Because we did see his dead body multiple times, and we also have Geraldine here who, looked at the autopsy. I presume that the autopsy people wouldn't just lie to protect Wicks. Now, the movie is called Wake Up Dead Man, so it is completely possible that maybe Wicks isn't actually dead, but it just doesn't click for me because I don't understand how they would, get the autopsy report to say that he was dead. And there's another thing in Wicks's sermon that I find very interesting. He says, "Remember what I have promised you all come Easter Sunday, for I will make good on that promise." Sounds a bit like a threat to me. Now remember, he doesn't live to see Easter Sunday. He dies on Good Friday. So maybe whatever he promised to everyone is some sort of threat to them, and they needed to get rid of Wicks before he makes good on that promise. Now remember, on the Sunday before before Wicks died, Judd walks into a meeting with everyone where Wicks is yelling about Judd's secret prayer meeting. Now Blanc is a bit curious about what was said during that meeting of everyone where Wicks was yelling at everyone, and Cy actually recorded it. So Cy offers to show Blanc and Judd the recording of Wicks yelling at everyone about Judd's secret prayer meeting, and suddenly everyone starts freaking out. Nobody wants them to see that recording. Dr. Nat Sharp even says, "It could ruin people in this room." Turns out that meeting was not set up by Wicks himself, but it was set up by Vera. So she starts off the meeting by empathizing with Grace, Wicks's mother. And so far, we haven't really seen anyone empathize with Grace, so this is quite unique. And what Vera does during this meeting is that she reveals that she got a call from a colleague in Brooklyn. And this call was about Wicks, her client. Wicks filed an AOP behind Vera's back. An AOP is an acknowledgement of parentage. This acknowledgement of parentage is for Cy. So I did slightly predict it. I assumed that Cy was going to be Vera's, birth child, biological son, but it turns out Cy is Wicks's biological son. I did mention that, but that was not my main theory, so I'm not going to count that as a win. So Vera, obviously, is furious. And honestly, at this point, if Vera did it, I wouldn't really blame her, because she did raise his son for him. And knowing that Wicks could have just taken responsibility of Cy and saved Vera from having to essentially stop her life, I honestly understand why Vera did it. We don't know that Vera has done it yet, but if Vera did it, I understand why. So Wicks actually calls Cy his heir, and he says that the world is going to know it. So he's finally taking responsibility for Cy. Now, everybody else, except for Vera, starts making excuses for Wicks because they don't want to go against him. So I guess Vera's meeting was kind of pointless. I guess they're going to keep supporting Wicks no matter what. Wicks also says that his final service will be held on Easter Sunday. But remember, he doesn't make it to Easter Sunday because he dies on Good Friday. He also gives out one final threat. He says that he will close down the church for good, but not before I have destroyed each and every one of you. So I assume that is the promise that he was referring to on the day that he was killed. So it turns out Wicks has blackmail on all of these people. Well, not all of them, but most of them. Dr. Nat has been drinking a lot since his wife left him, and turns out he's been going to work drunk. And keep in mind, he's a doctor, so that's a big no-no. And Wicks is essentially saying that he's going to expose Nat to the medical board and ruin his life. As for Lee, the book that he's writing on Wicks is his final hope. But Wicks says that he's going to contact his friends in publishing and just bury Lee's new book, and also Lee himself. So he's basically going to destroy any future career that Lee could have. As for Vera, he doesn't really have any blackmail information on her, but he does say, "You are your father's nightmare. He would be so ashamed." and Vera starts crying. Now my question is, ashamed of what? And what is so bad that she goes from being furious at Wicks immediately to crying? Again, I'm suspicious of Vera because we know nothing about her. We have a lot of information and a lot of motive for the rest of the people, but I feel like there is more to Vera than what we're seeing. As for Simone, again, Wicks doesn't have any blackmail on her per se, but he does say, "I cannot heal a faithless woman." So Simone also reveals that she has given Wicks all of her savings. And he also says something pretty harsh to Simone. He says, "You will die in pain in the prison of that chair." I mean, I understand Wicks is not a good person, but I feel like that's crossing a line. Like, that's way too harsh on this woman that's basically given him all of her money. And what I find very interesting is that he does not threaten Martha. Now, keep in mind, Samson isn't there, so it makes sense that he wouldn't be threatening him. But Martha is the only person there that he doesn't really threaten. Martha looks pretty worried, though, as he's saying this. And Cy, who is now we know that he's Wicks' son, Cy looks very happy. Cy actually reveals to Judd and Blanc that he's the reason Wicks is letting all these people go. After Vera told Cy that he was Wicks' son, Cy confronted Wicks. Wicks basically tells Cy that he wants to get out of the church and now he finally can. He also reveals that he has found the family fortune. The thing that is the big mystery surrounding all this, Wicks has found it just this week. And his plan is to retire. But Cy stops him. So with Wicks' money and Cy's experience on social media, Cy basically says that he can make Wicks famous and very powerful. But Cy does let Wicks know that the rest of the flock is a liability and to torch them, so to get rid of them. Now that Wicks is dead, the family fortune technically belongs to Cy, but Cy has no idea where it is. He assumes that it must be in a Swiss bank account, and he just needs to find the number to that bank account. Cy also thinks that there's some sort of code because Wicks kept saying Eve's apple would be restored to the tree. And Cy does try to figure out this code, but he can't, so he asks for Blanc's help. Now, you might remember the snow globe that was given to Grace by Prentice. So the globe that was given to Wicks' mother by Wicks' grandfather. The snow globe had Eve's apple written on it, but Blanc and Judd do take it apart and they don't find anything in there. Judd and Blanc also find out that the crypt opening was ordered last Wednesday, before Wicks was even dead. Again, Wicks died on a Friday. Blanc says that it must have been the killer who ordered the crypt opening for Wicks because he knew that Wicks was going to die. But I'm pretty sure it was Wicks himself. I don't think anyone would be dumb enough to plan this fancy murder that's unsolvable and then just order the crypt opening 3 days in advance. I think it was Wicks himself. I mean, you know that rich people love being buried with their money, so I'm assuming Prentice, Wicks' grandfather, was buried with his fortune. Maybe he was buried with the Swiss bank account number. Wicks finds out about it and he orders the crypt to be open so that he can get the Swiss bank account number and he can get his fortune. Okay, so Geraldine actually does reveal something to us about Blanc. So when Blanc was explaining the 3 different ways a locked door mystery can be solved, turns out he did not mention the 4th way. Now the 4th way is revealed by Geraldine herself. Geraldine looks back at the footage and she notices that from when Judd walks into the closet, he has 9 full seconds before anyone else comes up to the closet. So Geraldine says that the only thing that makes sense is that Judd, in those 9 seconds, stabbed Wicks. And to this, Blanc responds, yes. So maybe Judd did do it? I'm very confused as to... they keep revealing the killer to be Judd, but then it turns out it's not Judd, so I don't know what's happening anymore. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we have another body. I'm actually kind of sad about this, because it's Sam who's the only good person here, and he seemed very nice to Judd, and everyone else was being kind of mean. But yeah, Sam has been stabbed, he's now dead. Now, I did say we have another death, which is Sam, but maybe we sort of have a net 0 of death, because apparently Wicks is alive again. So, just to walk you through what happens, Judd is walking home. He sees a figure in a hood and a lantern, kind of how Sam was dressed before, and he sees Sam standing by the crypt. The crypt opens up and Wicks walks out of it. So I guess the door actually served its purpose. So Wicks is walking towards Sam in a kind of angry way. Judd gets worried and he yells, "Sam!" and he tries to chase after them, but he ends up slipping in some mud. Both Wicks and Sam run into the forest, and when Judd tries to follow them, Wicks punches Judd in the face. Actually, we don't know that it was Wicks, but I'm presuming that it was Wicks because I don't think Sam would punch Judd, but who knows. So Judd gets knocked out, and then he wakes up. He has a long knife, and that knife is important. He has a long knife in his hand. He sees Wicks back alive, and Judd goes towards Wicks with the knife and tries to stab him. Which, honestly, fair enough. At this point, Wicks sucks. And then Judd passes out again, and this time when he wakes up next to Samson's body. And Samson is stabbed with a sickle, which is basically a farming tool. It's like a curved farming tool. So it's not the same knife that Judd stabbed Wicks with. And also, we don't know where Wicks is at this point. We don't even know if that was Wicks or if Judd was hallucinating and thought that Sam was Wicks. I don't know. So Blanc tries to find Judd, but Judd runs away. Something about this situation is not normal. I will have to presume that Judd has been drugged because none of that makes sense. Now, the only person that Judd interacted with on his way out is Martha. But they only briefly pass by each other, so I don't know how Martha could have drugged Judd. So Blanc and Geraldine check the crypt, the coffin is open, and Wicks's body is gone. And then Martha starts acting really, really dramatic and starts talking about God and how Wicks has risen. And to be honest, I don't believe this for even a single second. She's acting. I think she's very smart. I don't think that she would be this dramatic unless she had some other reason. And Martha ends up running into Sam's body, and she just starts crying. And I feel kind of bad now because I'm pretty sure that's genuine. But I was right about one thing. Wicks is the person who ordered the crypt to be opened. So at least we have that. And Judd does end up hallucinating Wicks again. He looks at a tree and he thinks it's Wicks. So I'm pretty sure Judd has been drugged. Now, there is something else that's kind of odd that was said. I might just be thinking too hard about this, but Vera does say that she has smoked for 15 years. I find that weirdly specific, but I also find that odd because Sai is surprised to see Vera smoking. So, because this seems kind of odd, I did do some math. So, when Vera and Sai meet, Sai is 10 years old. Vera is just out of law school. Most people graduate high school at age 18, and according to the internet, you need at least 3 years of undergrad credits in order to go to law school. And then law school in America is again another 3 years. So if Sai was 10 years old when they met, Vera would be around 24. And if Vera was smoking for 15 years, but Sai has never seen her smoke, that would, I guess, mean that she stopped smoking at 24. But for that to be accurate, she would have had to start smoking at 9. Now, I don't want to judge anyone's choices, but it seems a bit extreme for a 9-year-old girl to start smoking, and I don't think that she would have lived this long if she started smoking at 9. So, I don't know why, but that just doesn't make sense. The timeline doesn't add up. I don't know how Vera smoking is relevant, but she does mention 15 years. That seems very specific. And then as for Sai, I presume he went to college. We're not sure of this though, but if he graduated high school at 18, went to college, let's say for 4 years, and then failed at politics for a couple of years, it still doesn't add up that Vera would have smoked for 15 years without Sai knowing about it. So the timing for this is not adding up. So moving on, we see Dr. Nat get a knock at his door. He opens it and he says, "Praise be, it's accomplished." So maybe Nat was involved in killing Wicks, or maybe Nat was involved in, resurrecting Wicks, or maybe Wicks wasn't dead at all and Nat was, the person who set it up. Blanc seems very nervous about getting to Dr. Nat as soon as possible. We are not really sure why yet. It is also revealed that the crypt has a motion camera in front of it. So we get to see the video that was recorded on that motion camera, and it captures Wicks walking out of the crypt. So I guess Judd didn't hallucinate it, because it's recorded. Wicks is alive, I think. And it's also revealed that the sickle that was used to stab Sam has Judd's fingerprints on it. So right now it's not looking good for Judd. Again, Blanc really wants to get to Dr. Nat's house, so he rushes off with Judd to go see Dr. Nat. And when they get to his house, it's completely trashed. Like, all the furniture is knocked over, and there's like broken frames and broken glass everywhere. Judd and Blanc go to Dr. Nat's basement, and it stinks. I wonder why. And turns out we now have a third body. Well, technically it's the same as the first body. It's the body of Wicks. He's sort of sitting over this tub of green goo. Blanc drains the green liquid from the tub, and we have another body. We have the body of Dr. Nat himself. But it's not really a body, it's like a skeleton. And Wicks's body is sort of strangling Dr. Nat's body, and the part of Wicks's hands that is underneath the green goo is also dissolved. It's also a skeleton. So I assume that green liquid is some sort of like acid thing. Blanc also looks around in Nat's bag, and he finds a little vial of some sort of drug. I cannot pronounce it, and I have no idea what it is. I assume it's relevant. And then Judd is about to confess to the killing of Samson to Geraldine, but Blanc stops him. And I feel like this is where Blanc is going to solve the entire mystery. It seems like he's going to start his whole, like, here's how it was done monologue. So I'm going to say my theories before it's revealed. So this is my final shot at getting it right. I'm going to settle it down to one theory, and hopefully it's at least partially accurate. I'm not very confident though. So I have looked over my notes, and I have quite a lot of them. But here are some of the things that really stick out to me. All the way at the start, in the inciting incident, Judd punches a deacon and breaks his jaw because the deacon said something out of line. I don't know why, but that stuck in my head. That's one of the only times that Judd has reacted in a physically violent way. It's just bugging me. I'm assuming Martha has to be involved. I don't know if she's the killer. I feel like that might be a bit too obvious, but there's too much happening that involves Martha for her to be innocent. I mean, she seems to be very smart. She's running an entire church basically on her own. And all of her reactions, except for the reaction to seeing Sam's dead body, but all of the other reactions are so overdramatic, like she's trying to distract people. And she also, multiple times, tries to get in the way of Blanc's investigation. Like whenever Blanc is trying to figure something out, Martha suddenly gets really dramatic. I assume that's to distract Blanc, so maybe Martha is the accomplice to someone else. Because I think Martha is involved, I have to assume that Sam is also involved, even though he's dead. He does refer to Martha as his sweet Martha, and he does specifically say, I'd do anything for her. So I'm assuming that if Martha wanted something done, she would go to Sam, and maybe Sam gets killed in the process. So I think Sam and Martha are 100% involved in some way. Maybe this is one of those things where like every single person, every single suspect is like working together to kill Wicks. That would make sense, I guess. All of them are sort of either being blackmailed by him or they've been fooled by him, and generally it doesn't seem like anyone likes him, so maybe they are working together. I still think this is very unlikely, especially Simone. Simone seems very genuine. I know that Wicks sort of took advantage of her faith and took all her life savings, but I cannot believe that Simone could kill someone. She seems very nice, so I don't think that everyone is guilty thing is plausible. The next thing that is really bothering me is why does this crypt have a Lazarus door? Again, a Lazarus door is when it would take construction equipment to open it from the outside, but from the inside all you have to do is push. I don't understand why the crypt was created, why Prentice made a crypt that can be opened from the inside. Maybe it's like because he was scared he was going to get buried alive or something, I don't know. But it just seems really odd, and I don't understand. Again, I don't know a lot about crypts, so maybe that's a normal thing, but I don't know why someone would make that door if they weren't planning on coming back to life. So Wicks' grandfather, Prentice, was like a holy man, so maybe he did believe, like genuinely, that he was going to get brought back to life, but Wicks himself? I don't think so. My main theory is that maybe this was supposed to be like a publicity stunt that ended up going wrong. So Wicks fakes his death and he asks Martha and Sam for help. He also gets somebody, maybe Geraldine herself, to pay off the autopsy people. And then after Wicks has faked his death, he is put into the crypt, and maybe he goes in there to get the Swiss bank account number from Prentice's grave. Again, that's the bank account number for his family fortune. He did say that he found the family fortune a week before he died, so maybe this whole thing was a setup. And again, Wicks is the one who ordered the construction company to open the crypt the Wednesday before he died. He died on Friday, and he ordered the equipment on Wednesday. So maybe Wicks fakes his death, gets inside the crypt, gets the information for his family fortune, and then he opens the crypt from the inside. Sam tells Wicks about the fact that Sam has a motion camera over there. So Wicks ends up getting his family fortune, and then they can also spin this as like a publicity thing. The whole thing about Wicks being really holy and being brought back to life. Like Sai suggested, they could go viral on social media and Wicks would have a lot more success and power that way. So maybe Sai was involved as well. But after this entire plan was created, something ends up going wrong. And that ends up with Wicks actually dying. So I have 3 problems with this theory. 1, I have no real idea what could have gone wrong. The second thing is that if Sam was helping Wicks, who killed Sam? And the third problem is this does not explain who kills Dr. Nat, because there's no real connection of Dr. Nat to any of these people right now. Speaking of Dr. Nat, the thing that I find most suspicious in this entire thing is Dr. Nat's behavior when he found Wicks's body. Now, this honestly could have just been a writing mistake, or maybe it was just there for the drama, but a doctor would know not to pull something out of someone who has been stabbed. Like, if I know that, surely a doctor would be able to know that. Like, Dr. Nat walks into that closet, sees Wick's body lifeless on the ground. He's already bleeding, so it's presumed that he's been stabbed by something. And Dr. Nat goes to pull that something out? It just doesn't make sense. I would also like to bring up that Blanc did say the flask that Judd stole from Wicks's dead body was the final piece. So that flask has to be important somehow. I did mention the possibility of Wicks's flask being drugged. Again, I kind of believe this because Wicks did not really react to being stabbed. He just sort of fell to the ground. And the most suspicious person here is Martha, because she would have access to the flask because she controls what Wicks eats and drinks. And the final piece of evidence that I want to look at is what was found on the floor. So the only thing found on the floor, except for the flask that Judd hid, was 2 strings of red thread, thick red thread, I should mention, 3 inches long by the body near the hip. So from my memory of what happened, only 2 people were wearing red that day. One was Wicks, the victim, and one was Judd, who I presume to be innocent. One weird theory that I have is that maybe some red string was used to tie the knife to like the wall, very lightly. Maybe the knife was so lightly tied, when Wicks walked into the closet, it sort of made the walls and the floor vibrate a bit, and that loosened those strings, and then the knife fell and stabbed Wicks. The method of the murder is something that I'm really struggling with, because I know I said the knife thing, but that doesn't really add up. I assume the knife would be heavy enough to not be able to be held up by 2 pieces of string, and the timing thing isn't really something I understand, because how can you make a knife fall at the exact right time? But speaking of the method, previously Blanc did describe the 3 ways that a locked door mystery can be solved, and he does say that it was none of those, but when Geraldine reveals that there are actually 4 ways, and she does say that she thinks that Judd stabbed Wicks, Blanc does reply with yes. Blanc thinks that's what happened, but I don't think Blanc thinks Judd is guilty. The final way that Geraldine explains is that the person who entered the room is the one who ended up killing the person. Initially, I did think that Blanc was talking about Judd when he responded yes, but there was one other person who entered the room, and that is Dr. Nat. So maybe Dr. Nat stabbed Wicks. There is one problem with this. When Judd is the only one in the room, he does see that Wicks is already bleeding, So he's already been stabbed at that point, and I don't understand how it would work where Nat stabbed Wicks after he started bleeding. But I honestly feel like it has to be Dr. Nat who stabbed Wicks, because Blanc does reply yes when Geraldine says that someone stabbed Wicks in the closet itself. So Geraldine is saying that Judd stabbed Wicks, but maybe Blanc replied saying yes because he believes that Nat stabbed Wicks. Now, like I said, there are some problems with this theory. If Nat killed Wicks, who killed Nat? We still have no idea. And if Dr. Nat did kill Wicks, that doesn't really explain the video footage that we get of Wicks walking out of the crypt. And then we also have the question of who killed Sam and why. He seems like a pretty nice person. I don't think anyone here has any motive to kill him. So this is something that I don't really have an answer for. And my final suspicion before I make my final guess is on Vera. She is still very mysterious to me. Again, I've said this plenty of times, we have a lot of information on the other people. We don't really have that much on Vera. And Wicks describes Vera to be her father's biggest failure. And I don't understand why. What could Vera have done to make herself her father's biggest failure? And why is Vera so loyal to Wicks? Why has she been for so many years? Why did Vera agree to raise Sai? If I was in Vera's position, I wouldn't just start raising a random 10-year-old boy my dad brought me. So why is she still doing it? And why is she still here? Just to make her dad happy? Now, Wicks does threaten everyone, but he does not specify how he would destroy Vera. And also, the Vera and Sai timeline doesn't really add up because Vera specified that she smoked for 15 years, but Sai has no idea that Vera ever smoked. So that's also something that I find suspicious. And finally, we have two more deaths to discuss. Prentice and Grace. In case you've forgotten, Prentice is Wicks's grandfather and Grace is Wicks's mother. Both of them are dead. And about these two deaths, the only information we have comes from Martha. And like I said, I'm almost 100% sure Martha has to be involved in some way. She's acting too weird. So about these two deaths, Martha acted very weird when Prentice died. She was very calm, and remember, Martha was a child watching her father figure die, and she reacted very calmly. Martha was also the only witness to Prentice's death, and Prentice also told Martha, "I must protect our loved ones from its corrupting influence at all costs," referring to the inheritance. Grace, Wicks's mother, destroys the church in a demonic rage, according to Martha. I don't really believe that. I feel like it was something more serious though. I don't really believe Martha's demonic rage thing. And then we also know that Martha whispered something in Grace's ear that made Grace attack her. So Grace attacked a literal child because of what Martha said. Martha says that she said something like nice to her, but I don't believe that. And finally, Grace dies throwing herself against Prentice's crypt. All of this, I feel like, is very important information. Okay, so here is my final guess for every single one of the deaths in Knives Out, Wake Up Dead Man. It doesn't make complete sense, but this is the most that I've got. So this is what I believe happened. Sam and Martha help Wicks fake his death. So Wicks plans this all out so that he can enter the crypt, get the Swiss bank account number from Prentice's grave so that Wicks can finally have his fortune, and also pretend to come back to life as a publicity stunt so he can go viral with Sai. So Wicks tells Martha to put some sort of drugs or like sleeping pills into Wicks's flask so that Wicks will look like he's dead. As for the blood, there were those two strings on the ground, so maybe Wicks makes Martha sew something into his clothing. Maybe just like a little packet of blood, so when Wicks falls face down, maybe that blood comes out. This would explain the red strings, but I don't completely understand how you would build a pouch that has a bit of blood in it. And I feel like the police would have figured that out, but I don't know about that. So this is the initial plan, but while this plan is being made, there are other people also making a plan. So I think that there are two people who are also trying to come up with a plan to kill Wicks. Those two people are Vera and Dr. Nat. So Dr. Nat doesn't want to lose his career because of Wicks' blackmail, and maybe Vera doesn't want Wicks to reveal something about her. I assume Wicks has some sort of blackmail on Vera that he didn't talk about because that's the power that he has. If he talks about the blackmail, then he doesn't have that power anymore. I assume this blackmail is why Vera is so loyal to Wicks and why Vera has been so loyal her entire life. So what happens is Dr. Nat actually stabs Wicks. I'm not completely sure how, but I am almost 100% sure it must be Dr. Nat. Dr. Nat stabs Wicks. Martha and Sam believes this is fake. Again, they have the plan to fake Wicks' death, but Wicks is actually dead. Then, later on, Martha and Sam find out that Wicks has actually died. Maybe they figure out a way to use some editing software to make it look like their plan is successful and that Wicks has actually come back to life and walked out of the crypt. And then maybe Martha drugs Judd so that Judd witnesses Wicks walking out of the crypt. And Sam himself seems very handy. He's usually just fixing stuff, so maybe he figures out a way to open the crypt from the outside without the construction equipment. And then I assume Martha and Sam figure out that it must have been Dr. Nat who stabbed Wicks, because Dr. Nat was the only other person who entered the closet. So maybe both of them or one of them plan on killing Dr. Nat as revenge for killing Wicks. So they use the same sleeping pills that they gave Wicks to Nat, and they get rid of Nat's body, and they also set it up to look like Wicks' dead body killed Nat to keep up this whole came back to life charade. And then maybe Sam figures out that Vera was involved in the killing of Wicks, so Vera stabs Sam to protect herself. And then we have the deaths of Prentice, who was Wicks' grandfather, and Grace, who was Wicks' mother. So maybe Martha finds out that Prentice has forgiven Grace, and he's going to actually give Grace the account number to the Swiss bank account. Now, Martha doesn't want this to happen because she wants to prevent it at all costs, like Prentice told her to. So maybe Martha, as a child, poisoned and killed Prentice. Because again, Prentice's death didn't look natural to me. It looked like he sort of collapsed. So maybe that's how he died. And then maybe Martha takes the bank account number and hides it on Prentice's body, knowing that it'll be locked into the crypt and no one else will be able to get it. And then maybe to make sure that Grace doesn't try looking in the crypt, Martha drugs Grace, sort of making her have this psychotic episode that Martha described as a demonic rage. So maybe to push Grace over the edge to make sure that Grace dies because of the fact that Martha has drugged her, Martha whispers in Grace's ear, maybe something along the lines of, "It's in the crypt and you'll never get it." Maybe something like that. And then that would explain why Grace attacked Martha when Martha was a child, and it would also explain why Grace died throwing herself against Prentice's crypt, because she was trying to get in, but she was on so many drugs that she didn't realize that she was physically incapable of opening the crypt. Now this must be Martha's greatest sin, that Judd challenged her to confess to Wicks, and maybe that's why Wicks looked so shocked. And maybe that's what leads Wicks to come up with this fake his own death plan that ends up going wrong and actually ends up with him getting killed. Now, there are a couple of plot holes to this theory, but this is the best one that I could come up with. So, Martha killed Prentice and Grace. Dr. Nat and Vera killed Wicks. Martha and or Sam killed Dr. Nat. And then Vera killed Sam. So, let's see if I was right. Okay, so I did end up getting some stuff right, but I also got a lot of stuff wrong. So, let's walk through what actually happened. So Blanc reveals that when Wicks collapsed in the closet, he wasn't actually dead. He hadn't even been stabbed yet. So Wicks's flask had been spiked with a tranquilizer, and that's why he passed out. In the bar where Judd gets that little devil head sculpture, there's actually an identical lamp with an identical devil head that was also missing. So there's not one devil head, there's two. So one of the devil heads was painted red, and it was attached to Wicks's clothing with red string so that it blended in. Now, this devil head was filled with a little bit of blood, and that blood was released because of a RF remote, and that is why there was a glitch in Sam's tape. And then Martha's reaction to seeing the devil sort of acted as a distraction for Dr. Nat to rip the devil head off of Wicks's body and then stab Wicks with a knife that also has a red devil head attached to it. And then Dr. Nat needs to make sure to get rid of the drugged flask. But Judd ends up doing that for him. Judd is unaware of this entire thing, but Judd ends up hiding the flask and then coming back for it later. So Blanc is about to explain the rest of the mystery, but he suddenly has this realization and he stops and he says, "I cannot solve this case." Turns out he can. He just didn't want to yet. He wanted to give the killer the opportunity to confess of their own free will. And the killer is Martha. She wasn't too obvious. She wasn't a distraction. She wasn't a red herring. She was the actual killer. So how did Martha do it? Let's get into it. So Prentice, who was Wicks's grandfather, shows Martha a diamond, which he describes as Eve's apple. Now Prentice says this diamond is his entire fortune, so it's worth around $80 million, and he swallows it, killing himself. Only Martha witnesses this, so only Martha knows this secret. But Grace, Wicks's mother, actually figures out that Prentice had bought a diamond. Grace finds this out because she knew a lot about fancy brands, and she looks at the little globe that she was given. It was very expensive. It was $20,000, and the center of it that had that little Jesus figure actually looked like it could fit a jewel. But she didn't know where Prentice hid it. So the entire demonic rage thing of Grace destroying the church, she wasn't actually trying to destroy the church, she was just trying to find the diamond. We also find out what Martha, as a child, whispered in Grace's ear that eventually made Grace attack her. Martha said, "I know where he hid it, and you'll never find it, you harlot whore." So that's a bit extreme. So Martha ends up keeping this secret for the past 60 years. But she keeps this secret until Judd ends up challenging her to confess her greatest sin. She does confess, but she does it to the wrong priest. She confesses to Wicks. So on the Sunday before Wicks dies, remember Vera exposes that Cy is actually Wicks's son, and that's when Martha also finds out that Cy is Wicks's son. Martha sees Wicks embrace Cy, so Martha suspects something. So she contacts the construction company, and she's told that Wicks has ordered the construction equipment to open the crypt. In Martha's words, to steal the diamond for his own greed and lust for power. Martha at this point feels like she has failed Prentice, because if Wicks gets his hand on that diamond, then the church would fall just like Prentice warned her. Martha spent her entire life trying to protect the church, so if she failed, what was her life? She would have failed her sole purpose. So she decides that she's going to steal the jewel and get rid of it. She also plans on turning Wicks into some holy symbol so that she can save the church. Now, she knows that Dr. Nat is weak and desperate and will do anything to protect himself, so she takes his help. Dr. Nat can also give her medical-grade tranquilizers. So Dr. Nat gives Martha the tranquilizer. She uses it to drug Wicks's flask, and she's also the one that has sewn on the little devil head to Wicks's clothing. Dr. Nat releases the blood using a remote, which is why Sam's tape had a glitch on it. And then when she sees Wicks collapse, Martha creates this distraction by doing a very over-dramatic reaction. This gives Dr. Nat the time to rip off the sewn devil head from Wicks and then stab him with the knife with the second devil head on top. And that's also when Judd, who's unaware of all of this, gets rid of the drugged flask. Martha also takes the help of Sam. Sam is the one who created the coffin, and he made it so that it can be opened from the inside. When Martha wanted to be alone with Wicks's body, both of them actually took Wicks's body, hid it, and Samson, dressed as Wicks, got in the coffin instead, because he said he would do anything for Martha. And then Dr. Nat can close the coffin before anyone can see. So the hooded figure that Judd ends up seeing in front of the crypt, we assume that to be Sam, but that's actually Dr. Nat dressed like Sam. So Dr. Nat is standing in front of the crypt. He uses his watch to send a notification to Sam so that Sam can wake up, open Prentice's coffin, get the jewel, and then open the Lazarus door from the inside. They are aware of the motion camera, and the motion camera will capture all of this, and the camera quality is pretty bad, so they won't be able to tell that it's not actually Wicks, but actually Samson dressed like Wicks. And because Dr. Nat is dressed like Sam, it looks like Sam is witnessing Wicks open the crypt. So the plan was that Dr. Nat disposes of Wicks's body with the green goo that we saw in his cellar, and the next day, Sam will say that he witnessed a miracle and he witnessed Wicks come back to life. Everything is going to plan until Judd shows up. And another thing that doesn't go to plan is that Martha finds Sam's body. Sam wasn't supposed to die. She has an idea of what went wrong, but to be sure, she has to go visit Dr. Nat. So when Dr. Nat opens his door and he says, "Praise be, it's accomplished," he was actually talking to Martha. So Dr. Nat shows Martha Wicks's body in his cellar, and he also gives the jewel to Martha. So Martha and Dr. Nat sit down to have some coffee. Dr. Nat doesn't know that Martha has seen Sam's body. So Dr. Nat lies to Martha and says everything went according to plan. Martha reveals that she has seen Sam's body, and she knows that Dr. Nat is lying, and that's when Dr. Nat tells Martha the truth. So everything goes to plan until Judd shows up. So Judd believes that he has seen Wicks and Sam run into the forest. But in fact, he's seen Sam, who's dressed as Wicks, and Dr. Nat, who's dressed as Sam. Judd tries to run after them, but again he slips in the mud, and Dr. Nat and Sam need to make sure that Judd doesn't see them. So Sam punches Judd in the face. And because Sam is dressed like Wicks, Judd thinks that Wicks punched him in the face. Sam goes to check on Judd to make sure he's okay, and that's when Dr. Nat looks at the jewel. Now again, this jewel is worth $80 million. And Martha describes Dr. Nat to be a desperate little man who cannot resist the temptation of Eve's apple. Martha and Dr. Nat had agreed to destroy the jewel and just throw it in the ocean, get rid of it. But all that stood between Dr. Nat and $80 million is Martha and Sam. So what Dr. Nat does is that he takes Sam's sickle and stabs Sam with it. Dr. Nat wants to frame Judd for the murder of Sam because Judd does have a history of violence. And then the only thing Dr. Nat has to do is get rid of Martha. Dr. Nat lets Martha know that he has poisoned her coffee. That was the little vial that Blanc found in Dr. Nat's bag. So Dr. Nat lets Martha know that she'll be dead in 10 minutes, and he tries to explain himself by saying that the money will bring back his wife. So Martha does say to Dr. Nat that she understands why he's doing this, but unfortunately for Dr. Nat, Martha understood it before she even showed up. So when Dr. Nat is giving Martha the jewel, Martha accidentally drops the jewel on the ground. Dr. Nat goes to get it, and that's where Martha switches their coffee cups. So Dr. Nat figures out that he's been poisoned, and he tries to leave his house, but it's too late. That's why his house was a mess, because he was having difficulty walking, and he kept flopping over, and he kept dropping everything and knocking over furniture. Then Martha takes Dr. Nat's body, brings it to the cellar, puts him in the green goo, and makes it look like Wicks's dead body is strangling Nat's dead body. And as she's giving this confession, Martha collapses. It's revealed that she has also poisoned herself. She ends up dying, and she ends up dropping the jewel that was in her hand onto the floor. And that's it. That's how the Good Friday murder was committed. I'm happy that I got some of it right, but I didn't get it exactly right, so I'm not going to count that as a complete win. And yeah, that was really fun. I hope I can do more of those in the future.